Hello everyone, welcome to the final edition of Let's Talk Criterion for the month of February. And in this edition we take a look at the 1939 film starring James Cagney and Humphrey Bogart, The Roaring Twenties, directed by Raoul Walsh. Cagney and Bogart were two of the toughest tough guys to ever grace the silver screen in Hollywood. And both of them, of course, helped define the gangster genre. And indeed both were able to break free from that typecasting, each incidentally winning an Academy Award for playing the good guy. Now, up to this point in their careers, they had appeared together twice previously in Angels with Dirty Faces and The Oklahoma Kid in 1938 and 1939 respectively. Director Raoul Walsh decided to team them together again in 1939 in The Roaring Twenties. There's a nice musical homage near the beginning of Raoul Walsh's The Roaring Twenties that's indicative of the place that James Cagney held in 1930s cinema, as well as the attention to detail of the artists and artisans at Warner Brothers Studios. Or maybe it's just a nice coincidence. The Roaring Twenties is the film that brought down the curtain on a decade of slick American gangster movies in consummate style, and it's widely regarded as one of the best of the genre. It's also an epic film that spans the entire dizzy decade, from the end of World War I through the years of Prohibition, right up to the Wall Street crash and the Great Depression. The screenplay for the film was drawn by the experiences of Mark Hellinger when he worked as a journalist in the 1920s. Cagney's character was based on the real-life mobster called Larry Fay. This, together with newsreel-like inserts between the main narrative segments, gives the film a documentary-style feel, and it was the director Raoul Walsh's first gangster film, and he was a last-minute replacement for Anatoly Litval. Now, it may not have been the last gangster film to ever have been made, but The Roaring Twenties does effectively mark the end of an era. In this and all subsequent films about 1930s gangsters, there is a distinct impression that we are looking back to some mythical age removed from our own. The Roaring Twenties is also the first film to set the age of the American gangster within its proper historical context, that is, between World War I and the Great Depression. And whilst not condoning criminal activity within the film, it does set out to explain the origins of the gangster scourge, as well as the result, of course, of unfortunate social, political, and environmental factors. Now, Prohibition removed the supply of alcohol, but not the demand for it, and as a result, an underworld was created where gangsters thrived. They shipped and they distributed illegal alcohol, and they ran gambling joints and speakeasies. There were, of course, the kingpin notorious gangsters like Al Capone, but a lot of the hoodlums were much smaller. They were working for the bigger mob bosses, and they kept the operation running smoothly, and they dealt with those who wanted to muscle in on the action, so to speak. Now, this film also looks at the colourful and vivid portrayal of the jazz age of the time, and this concoction of gangsters, melodrama, music and comedy is what makes this film work so well. The inclusion also of many popular songs at the time, like Melancholy Baby, I'm Wild About Harry, and It Had to Be You, adds greatly to the film's overall appeal without making it too distracting. Eddie Bartlett, James Cagney, George Halley, Humphrey Bogart, and Lloyd Hart, Jeffrey Lynn meet each other in a foxhole during the final days of the First World War. And following the war's end, Lloyd starts his law practice, George becomes a bootlegger, and Eddie becomes a cab driver. Now, while unknowingly delivering a package of liquor to Panama Smith, played in the film by Gladys George, Eddie is arrested. Panama is acquitted, and after a short stint in jail, they go into the bootlegging business together. Eddie uses a fleet of cabs to deliver his liquor, and he hires Lloyd as his lawyer to handle his legal issues. He also encounters Jean Sherman, played in the film by Priscilla Lane, a girl he formerly corresponded with during the war, and he gets her a job singing in Panama's club. Eddie wants Jean as his wife, so he gives her an engagement ring that he asks her to hold while he's saved up enough money to quit the criminal rackets. Now, Raoul Walsh's skillful direction succeeds in getting excellent performances from the fine cast. Particularly memorable, of course, is James Cagney's performance. In one of his most substantial roles, we see not just his tough guy charm, but a deeply engaging and emotional depth and pathos. He's really effective in the final sequences of the film as well. He would return again to gangster roles with probably his most famous role a decade later in the 1949 film White Heat. The film also marks the third and final pairing. Cagney's character is a good guy turned bad, while Bogart's is just plain evil. Now, at the time, Bogart was teetering on the edge of stardom, and here we see the hard-edged, cynical character role emerge that would define his screen persona and quickly establish him as one of Hollywood's most iconic actors. Priscilla Lane may sing nearly all of the songs, but it's Gladys George who gets the best lines in the film, and after Cagney, she is the second best thing. There are also two supporting performances worth discussing. Frank McHugh offers the finest performance of his career as the homespun Danny. His friendship with Eddie places him in dangerous situations where he has no right to be. Gladys George is the nightclub owner, Panama Smith, and she also turns in the performance of her career. Sharp, witty, tough, and also tender, Miss George conveys emotion with her eyes in a manner that no other role she played would allow. It is she who has given the film's memorable final line. Now, in a film containing many highlights, Eddie's death scene is especially impressive. The Roaring Twenties was an enormous success in the cinema. It grossed more than any film that any of the actors had done to that point, and it has retained its impact throughout the years. Criterion bring the film to 4K UHD, and it joins the collection with a HDR Dolby Vision grading and a separate Blu-ray with the film and the following special features. We have an audio commentary with the film historian Lincoln Hurst. We have a 22-minute new interview with critic Gary Giddens, author of Warning Shadows, Home Alone with Classic Cinema, and that is entitled The Underworld Moves On. And he talks in that about the lauded year 1939 for Hollywood cinema, Cagney's career, and how the crime genre has changed. And there's also an excerpt from a 1973 interview with the director of the film, Raoul Walsh. In this 5-minute excerpt from the 1973 interview he took where he extols Cagney. And his work has also been noted as influences on directors such as Rainer Werner Fassbinder and Martin Scorsese. Now, there's also a trailer for the film, and the insert that comes with the film is an essay by film critic Mark Aish. And the cover is designed by Jennifer Dionisio. Now, I would say that the 4K edition is only a minor uptick on the Blu-ray edition. They are both sourced from the same 4K restoration. Occasionally cited as one of the greatest gangster movies you've never seen, The Roaring Twenties brought to a close the celebrated Warner Brothers gangster cycle of the 1930s, and it still remains one of the greatest and most influential crime films of all time. The film comes in an Academy aspect ratio of 1:37:1, and it has a running time of 106 minutes, and it joins the collection on Tuesday the 27th of February with a spine of 1208. In the next edition of Let's Talk Criterion, we look at the fearless Laura Poitras documentary, All the Beauty and the Bloodshed. So until then, from me, it's goodbye, and above all, good Criterion viewing.